Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women and Alcohol Live. I'm Nancy McKay, your host, and today, again, I'm so excited that Lori Marini is joining us again today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
This is great. Now, I'm hearing a little echo, and I hope that that doesn't come through on the recording, but we'll proceed like I don't hear it. So 2 weeks ago, you were here with us, Lori, and we were talking about everything, cancer, alcohol, your work as a pathology PA. And we started to touch on self-care, and we ran out of time. So I would love for us to kind of pick up where we left off and just have a conversation about what self-care looks like to us and why neither one of us are rock stars in making sure that we do take good care of ourselves. I know I struggle with it. I struggle to make myself a priority. I make my career a priority. That's my number one thing right now. And as a result, I get worn out and tired and exhausted and all of that. How about you?
Oh, same. I think we all have our versions of that. And I feel it's a little bit more so as a woman, right? I feel like we need to take on all the responsibilities of, having a career and then staying in touch with our friends and raising our children and doing all of that, right? And it may be a fur baby and not an actual baby, but still you take on that responsibility. And I think because we're nurturers and we want to make sure everybody else is taken care of, we forget about ourselves. And it usually gets to a detrimental point where you're like, okay, I need to start thinking about me. And I know for me, having been diagnosed with cancer, like that was the first thing. Like I was absolutely awful at taking care of myself. I would run myself ragged every day. And so sometimes, we need to be hit over the head, like really hard in order to get that message loud and clear.
Yeah. And something just popped into my mind, and that's first of all, I have to say that I am blessed with a husband who takes really good care of me. He does most of the cooking. I mean, like 95% of the cooking. He does most of the grocery shopping. I'm spoiled rotten.
I love this.
And yet, I don't do it for myself much. So I'm going to let you pick up kind of where you left off a second ago, because I've got something running around in my head, and I want to make sure that I remember what it is that I want to ask you, because you just hit on something that triggered something for me, and I lost it. I have to admit that I lost it, because there's so many thoughts in my head about self-care and why we don't do it. And I think you came onto something really important about women. We being typical nurturers, that we are worried about everyone else. So pick up a little bit where you left off there before I jumped in.
Yeah, I think, there was a quote that I read on this this podcast that I was just on. It's called Get Up Nation. And it was, resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats and significant sources of threat, right? And it's from the American Psychological Association.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there with it for a hot second because I'm like, as humans, we're very resilient. And as women, even more so, because we take on a lot of the burden of having a household, most of the time. And I think because of, men and women are very different in their thought process. I feel that men are very single focused. They can sit there and do their job and not worry about all the other 10,000 things. I think as women, we drive ourselves a little crazy. We do it to ourselves, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I feel like we do it to ourselves because our brains just have 30 times the thoughts than men do. And it's not that it's a intellect thing. It's like, I literally have had conversations with my male friends and I'm like, okay, how does it work for you? And they're like, oh, if I'm focused on work, then I'm just thinking about work. Like, our brains literally shut down sometimes where we don't think about anything. And I'm like, I've never had that happen to me. Right. And so I think we add a little bit to our stress, but with that, and because we are always so focused outwards, that we become very resilient and we're able to take on more and we're able to keep piling on the pressure and the stress that's on us to the point that we forget to look inward. And I think that that's super important when it comes to self-care. We were talking about one of the things that I would absolutely love to do is like curl up on the couch, with a nice warm cup of coffee, a blanket and a book. Right? Like, that's like my heaven, but I never allow myself to do that.
Right.
My brain doesn't shut down even when I try to do it. Like, as I'm reading the book, I'm thinking about all the 30 other things I should be doing. But that's like where we need to change that. And I feel that that's like changing patterns. We need to change that habit.
Right. Right. So a couple things. So you did bring up my lost thought, and that was stress, mm-hmm. and what that does to our bodies, mm-hmm. and how stress can create cancer cells or give you cancer. And I don't know about you, but if you were running yourself ragged before you got cancer, mm-hmm. how much of that do you think attributes to your diagnosis?
So I had 4 lesions on my left side, and I've literally named them, with the biggest one being the hospital in which I worked at for 15 years that caused me a lot of stress. The second was the ex-husband that caused me a lot of stress. Like, I literally went down the list of the things in my life, and I made it a joke, but it's been a proven fact that when you have a major stressor in your life, you could guarantee, well, I don't want to use the word guarantee, but it's been documented that if you, like, say you're diagnosed with cancer today, if you look back 7 to 10 years in your life, like in the past, you will find that you've had a major period of stress. And it's something that's been researched, it's been documented. And when I looked back as to when I was diagnosed in 2017, I could see my stressor of 2010. I could see my stressor of 2007. Like, I literally went back and I'm like, that's really true. And so that's why, like, self-care is so important. And there's many different forms of it that you can do, but you have to allow yourself to do it, right? Give yourself permission, give yourself that grace to be like, you know what, I'm tired and I need to fill my cup up.
Right. And so that's a really good point, is permission, giving ourselves permission.
100%.
I did a course years ago before I started coach training with Brene Brown. It wasn't her intensive course for people in the psychological field, but it was kind of a course that she did for lay people. And one of the modules was writing permission slips to ourselves for the things that we needed to do for us, mm-hmm. self-care permission slips. And mm-hmm. and it's so important. And it's so important. Easy for us to you know, throw that away and not think about it. And yet, as women, I think we are very, I think we have that intuitive inner wisdom that we can tap into. That I think, and here's a generalization, but I think women are a little bit more attuned maybe to their inner wisdom than men. I'm not sure if that's true, but this idea is just really intriguing to me, and that's why I do what I do, right?
Right.
So, my work with women, helping them learn how to cope with life's challenges in a different way when they're stuck in a cycle of unhealthy habits and behaviors, and or even addictions, so that they can feel happier and feel joy again, right?
Yeah.
So and in that is self-care.
Yeah.
Learning how to do that. And so, obviously, you've got I need to embrace that so that I can teach my clients how to do it. Right?
Yeah. So, and I agree. I think everybody at every level, no matter how much self-care you provide, I always feel like it's like yoga, right? I'm going to use the example of yoga. No matter how many times you do yoga, every time you do yoga, you never truly become an expert at yoga because you do the same move over and over again, and you just get better and more stretch and, a better conditioning from the same move that you keep practicing. Right. So I kind of feel that self-care is the same, and it's part of the reason why I have that as my free gift on my website is like the 10 habits, like the 10 daily habits to wellness is literally my free gift on my website. So if anybody wants to go and download it, please go ahead. And it's the reason why I did it, because it's so important, but it highlights things that we kind of forget. So, meditation, journaling, definitely are my top two. I do that every morning. And then nutrition is also one of them, like staying hydrated, eating clean. I feel like it's all connected. So if you're making sure that your nutrition is on point, then you're going to exercise, and then you're going to go and make sure you get your sleep in, right? But then in turn, then that will have you look and see what your environment is like. Like, do you need to silence your environment a little bit more? Do you need to create some downtime for yourself? Do you need to get out in nature? Like, what does that look like for you? And the other thing too is like part of my self-care for me is when I get really busy, I don't take the time to make myself up like I like to make myself up, right? Like I don't make myself as pretty as I like myself to be. And, my self-care is like, no, he could wait another 10 minutes. I'm going to curl my hair. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the little things that make you feel empowered and beautiful and like, because it comes from within. And I'll never forget when after my surgeries, because of, I'm an open book, right? Like I think you know that by now. Like after my surgeries, because my breasts were no longer mine and they were implants, like they don't move, right? I can't get them to move. So I had a closet full of clothes that I didn't fit in. And the ones I did fit in, I didn't like how they looked on me because everything has shifted.
Right.
Right. So I literally gave it all away. And it started this path for me where I'm like, if it doesn't make me feel good, then I'm not keeping it around.
Yes.
And that's a form of self-care for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it doesn't bring you joy.
Yeah.
send it on its way to someone else who will love it.
Yeah. So I passed it forward. My sister came down from Montreal when I was after surgery. So she got the best of my closet. She literally came shopping. And we laugh about it because she'll like send me a pictures or something of like my purses and my shoes and like all this stuff that I was flying high on my meds, so I don't even remember half the stuff that she has. I have no idea.
And purses, huh?
Yeah. Well, we all are the same size, so it kind of works out. But she definitely made out in this one better than I did. It's so funny.
She's eternally grateful, I'm sure.
But yeah, we have a good time with it. And you know what? For everything that she's done for me, I will give her that and more. I couldn't have gone through that without her. And then, one of the other things too that comes up for me is like, what conversations are you having in your head? How do you talk to yourself?
Absolutely.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
we are the worst critic to ourselves. We were talking about earlier about how we feel like we don't do enough, like being an entrepreneur and trying to make a living from your own business and not having that steady 9-to-5 paycheck is really difficult mentally.
Yeah.
That I'm going to be honest with you, I barely slept last night because I was up really, really late, working on some deadlines that I have. And by the time I finished, I got off my computer. It takes me a couple of hours to go ahead and calm my brain down. And then before I knew it, it was morning and I was like, okay, I got more to do. So like at about 5:00 today, I literally shut my computer off and I'm like, I need a break. Like I can't keep looking at this screen anymore.
Right. And then here we are again. So.
Oh yeah, no, but this is fine. This is fine.
But it gets, you get weary of being on camera, being, all of the Zoom meetings that we're all doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very tiring.
Yeah.
And, it's hard on our posture and our, muscles and so on and so forth. So, I can understand that. And, I have to, because I love what I do so much and I enjoy creating things for my business and so on and so forth. It's hard to turn off the lights and shut it down and, go be a member of the family, which is, my husband and 2 dogs. So, and,
it's finding that balance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. So, I made a note of all the things that we talked about here, the meditation and journaling. I do that every day.
Crucial.
I'm a really good sleeper for the most part.
I'm terrible.
My nutrition is really pretty good. I'm sweet tooth, but other than that, it's pretty good. I don't get out in nature as much as I'd like to, but when I'm working with the horses.
Oh, I love that.
That is just, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
Get to work with a client and a horse. It's just, the best thing ever. And the other thing is drinking lots of water.
Yeah. Hydrating. So important, especially. So I've worked remotely now for over 3 years. And I think it's one of those things where, for the folks that haven't had the opportunity or misfortune, however you look at it, of having to work from home, there really are you need to prepare a little bit differently than what you would do for just leaving your house, getting in the car and going somewhere else.
Right.
And one of them is hydration. Like you nailed it when you said posture, like make sure you get up. So there's that, is it called the tomato rule? I always get it wrong, where you work for 30 minutes and then take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I can't. I just heard about it. It's a method. It's
it's like tomato or something like that. I can't.
Pomodoro.
That's it. Wrong language. But yes, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, for as long as you work, then you take a longer break. So if you work 45 minutes, you take a 15-minute break. And you get up and move your body, get your hydration in, make sure you get a snack. And going back, and that's the time, like for me, the blessing of having a dog that lives at home that's kind of needy, that always wants my attention, is the fact that every hour he looks at me and he's like, what are we doing? Right. So I just take him around the block. Like that for me, getting out of the space and being able to just remove myself for the 10 minutes it takes me to go around the block is really, really works wonders for me. It makes me feel like I'm not so bogged down, and allows me to refocus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea. And that's something that I don't do very often, is take a break. I try to take a break at lunchtime, but I certainly could work in a walk, and that would be good for me. It would be good for the dogs. They don't, it's so funny. They don't like to walk much. So
no,
they squirrels in the backyard, but they're not all that fond of going out on a leash. So they think it's a good idea until they start going. and then it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, like my little man literally has just come and sat down right next to me because he's like, okay, are we going out? It's almost my bedtime. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. So definitely find ways. And the other thing too is if you can't go for like a hike, my favorite thing to do is hiking, and then going to the beach. If you can't do either one of those, and part of why we like those is because they really are grounding. Getting in nature, having the woods around you, just having the silence really just allows you to recenter. And the beach, it's literally grounding when you think about it because you're barefooted. Right. If people don't have a lot of time and they can't get themselves into those kind of places, then find a local park and take your shoes off and just ground yourself on grass or dirt. And just that the electromagnetic fields of the earth will literally recenter you and very quickly. It's really, because we're energy, right? And it definitely works. If you haven't tried it, try it. And then I would love to hear from everyone like how that worked for you, or if you think I'm crazy.
Yeah, that would be great, because that's so true. And they talk about forest bathing.
Yeah.
Right? And just being in the forest and recentering and grounding.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do, develop a morning routine is another good thing, right? So if you don't have a morning routine, take the time. So for me, my morning routine is we wake up, I get our coffee ready or whatever we're going to drink, and we go for a 30-minute walk down to our waterfront, and then we come back. And then I meditate, I journal, and then I start my day. Like I'll get something to eat, and then I'll start my day. But it allows me to at least feel before my day even started that I did something for me. So if my day gets really hectic and it gets away from me, like today, then I at least feel like, oh, well, I at least got that walk in, right? I don't feel like there's a missing, because part of our struggle is when we feel like we are in suffering, right? Like we're suffering.
That's exactly right. That something isn't the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
That's what causes our suffering, is that we think whatever it is should be different than it is.
Exactly. So that's a way to put yourself first, right?
Yeah. So, exactly right. That's brilliant right there.
Yeah.
And I hope that resonates with the people that will be watching this replay. I don't think we have anybody on now. So for people who are watching later, really, listen to this, a couple times, and because Lori's really giving us some great nuggets of wisdom here.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's definitely because I wasn't doing it, right? Like I had to literally go through a life-altering trauma in order for me to get to this point in my life. 100%.
Well, and when you were talking about the stress and cancer, and when you look back at what was going on, same thing happened for me. When I look back, my dad committed suicide in 2007. Mm-hmm. I got sober in 2009. Mm-hmm. I got a new job that I really liked, but that's stressful. Started going back to an industry that I had been gone from for a long time. Mm-hmm. In 2010. And I was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. So there was a lot of stressors
in that time.
And so I want people to really pay attention to that and understand that it's within our power to figure out how we're going to mitigate the stress.
Yeah.
Because it is within all of our power to do that.
Well, your life depends on it. Is even another way to look at it, right? Like I know now, especially because I've crossed over, right? Mm-hmm. Like you and I are both in the same boat. Our cells have decided to, our bodies are amazing for the fact that they have control mechanisms in place. And it's what happens is once that control mechanism is burdened, when it's overburdened, is when you make the crossover. Mm-hmm. And then your cells will actually become like they'll turn cancerous on you. And so every day in our body, we have cancer cells and our bodies are fighting them off. We have cells that are not formed the right way. But what happens is your body is literally, there's a check and balance system within it that makes sure that we don't get sick. Right. But what happens with the stress and your decreased immunity is that system gets affected. It gets overburdened so much. It's not able to support you in getting rid of all those bad toxins that are within your body.
Right.
And the second that once you have crossed over and your cells have gone on the cancer side, you can't go back to being non-cancerous, right? There's no such thing. So I always, when I'm really like being hard-headed, I even gave my significant other, my boyfriend, permission to remind me, right? And my friends are really good that if I'm being like too much, like what I did this week is not good for me. I shouldn't have done that, but I was home alone, right? There was nobody there to be my check and balance when I can't be it for myself. But the words that I told them to use is my life depends on it. Like, Lori, your life depends on it. Because for me, I need it to be so severe for it to sink into my thick skull. Right?
Yeah.
But it's true. And I know that, this group that, might be listening, you have your own version of that. And we've all gone through some trauma, and your life depends on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and the other thing that I want to touch on again is that, just because, we've opened ourselves up and have been vulnerable here and have exposed the fact that we are not rock stars when it comes to self-care. Mm-hmm. What that, it also means that it's, again, it's a practice. Mm-hmm. Self-care is a practice.
Yeah.
And anything that we do for ourselves is worth doing. And I think that's part of it too, is self-love is in that self-care category, because if you don't love yourself, if you don't value yourself or think you're worth it, then you're not going to take care of yourself. You're not going to go the extra step or steps that really reinforce that self-care. It's hard to sit down and journal and meditate and eat right when you think, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Right.
Until you have to. Right. I think we've all gone to a critical point where we had to change our patterns, right? Humans work in patterns, and your patterns will either be benefiting you or they'll be destructing you.
Right.
And sometimes you could get away with them for a really long time until you're like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I know my patterns that I needed to change was overworking, right? I proved that to you today that I did it yesterday and today, right? Like, that's my pattern. You know what? Like, and you said it, like, yeah, we're not perfect at self-care because we're human. We all have our vices. We all have our patterns that we need to keep working on changing. And like, for me, I know I'm a people pleaser. I can't say no to people, and I overwork to avoid stuff in my life.
Right.
Like, I'm clear. I know my demons, and like, you have to, and that's why it's so empowering to have a community. Like, you can't do it alone. And part of what we have been told to do is, oh, you can't make yourself vulnerable. Don't let people know. Oh, you shouldn't tell people. You shouldn't do that. Like, no, keep it quiet. Like, no, like, the more you put it out there, the greater of a community you'll have. You will find your people.
Right.
And if your people don't come towards you, then they're not your people, right?
Right. Exactly.
So,
and I firmly believe that. And I also believe that allowing yourself to be vulnerable is one of the most courageous things you can do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if being vulnerable is a bad thing, then I'm screwed, because I put myself out there all the time.
I love that.
And, I don't know how to do it any other way.
But for a lot of people, it's very hard, right? So that's amazing that you're able to do that. But I know for me, when I am in a vulnerable spot, especially when it's something that really matters to me, I've always said it, where I'm like, when I stop talking, that's when you need to get nervous. But if I'm like, say I'm upset about something, or I'm displeased with something, and I'm like, hey, I really don't like that, like, right? The second that I stop talking is because I have started to shut down, and I'm not going to share with you my most vulnerable thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I always tell everybody, like, when I stop talking is when you need to start, and you need to, don't leave me alone. Like, that's the worst thing you could do. That's my suffering. Right.
Yeah. That's, and it's wonderful that you recognize that, and that you alert the people in your life to call you on it.
Yeah. And I don't like it at the time.
Support you in that.
Right. Well, it's my commitment to my relationships, right? Because if I didn't care about the people that I'm saying that to, then, they'll leave. We won't, that's been my pattern that I had to recognize of, I was actually saying it to somebody today, like, when we have a loss of control in our life, we find something to control. So when I'm overwhelmed with responsibility, I look for the one thing that I can get rid of to reduce my burden. And in my lifetime, it's been relationships, right? Like, the boyfriend that I was like, oh, forget it, I'll find somebody else, even though I really cared about them.
Yeah.
It was one of those things of, like, I couldn't keep the burden of going through working full time, being in grad school full time, doing, all the other responsibilities, and then having to manage
a relationship. Yeah.
Right. That I was like, hey, see you later. You know what I mean? And when I realized that, I started looking for all the times I did that in my life. And I'm like, there's my pattern.
Wow. That's really amazing. And that's so, that's great that you look back on that.
Right. And we all have our versions.
Yeah.
So I invite everybody to look and see, like, what do you keep recreating in your life? And, like, it goes down to that I think somebody had said it to me once, and that was probably my catalyst, was like, how come, like, what is it that do you get sick of people? Like what happens there? Right? And it kind of was like, huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because it wasn't that I was anti-commitment. It was just, after a while, I was just like, I'm done. I'm out. See you later.
I'm too tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
God. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, once again, we've gone over our allotted time, which
oh no,
I just didn't make this more, longer. But I've so enjoyed our conversation. I don't want to keep you up too long because you've had such an exhausting day and you didn't sleep well last night, and I want you to go take care of yourself.
I am. I'm literally turning all my electronics off.
Good.
I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read a book.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
I'm sorry that we went over. I hope that we talked about everything you wanted to talk about.
It certainly doesn't matter to me, and we don't have a strict time limit, so I think it's just wonderful that we, just chatter on, and we could chatter for a long time. So I really enjoy visiting with you.
Thank you so much.
Obviously, we hit on your on our rapid fire questions last time, and so I don't know that if you have any new thoughts on your favorite meal.
Tacos.
Oh,
tacos and pizza.
Yeah, tacos. I think it was pizza last time. So
yeah, those are my top two. I never turn either of them down. It's terrible.
No, it's wonderful. Why would you say that's terrible?
Oh, because I should. Well, I'm trying to stay away from dairy, and so for me, pizza has to have the cheese, and tacos have to have the sour cream, right? Otherwise, I don't enjoy them as much.
Right. So,
but yeah,
it all works out, right? Yeah. And do you have a new book on your nightstand that you're reading now, or?
I do. What's the name of it? Hold on, what am I reading? I have actually, if you saw it, I literally have like 10 books that I've started. I am still reading White Hot Truth by Danielle Laporte. I'm almost finished.
Ooh.
And for those of you who are energy, I believe in energy, and I believe that we are energy, and that light workers and all of that. Like, it's an amazing book, and it's actually like really grounded in self-care. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work for you, then it's okay, right? Yeah. Like, don't believe what everybody makes, all the big wigs. Like, sometimes their truth isn't your truth.
Right.
And I absolutely love this book.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, but has your favorite curse word or phrase changed since last time?
No.
Can you remind our viewers what that was?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure if it was the F-bomb. I'm pretty sure. And the way that I think what I usually always say is I give 0 fucks, right? Probably my favorite thing.
So that is a little different than last time.
What did I say last time?
I think last time it was, no, it wasn't, are you fucking kidding me is mine. And it wasn't fuck it, but the F-bomb was in there. So
yeah, it was something along that lines, but I'm starting to, really get on the 0 fucks bandwagon for sure.
That's a good
one. Am I allowed to say that? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, and I forgot to make the announcement that, that we, I talk like a sailor, so, I'm assuming that people know me by now, but at any rate. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to just mention while we're here, I've listened to Alicia Keys' new book on Audible, and it's fabulous. And listening to it is wonderful because her voice is just so and wonderful. So I highly recommend that.
Ooh,
And I've just gotten the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that's a daily book. You know, you look
I love that.
and it's fabulous. So those are two of them. And then Sarah Seidelman has a book called How Good Are You Willing to Let It Get? And that's another daily book that I read before I journal. So
I love that.
Yeah, they're fabulous. So,
yeah.
All right, my friend, thank you so
you.
much. Get some sleep, get some rest.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that if people are interested in getting that free download, just go to my website, LoriMarini.com.
Yes,
and
reminding us.
And please, you know, and give me feedback. If you think I need to get into more detail, I try to keep it short and sweet, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
That's great. That's wonderful. And I have a new freebie as well on my website, and it is my chapter that was published in the Ready to Fly Volume 3 book. So I'm offering that on my website.
I love that.
And so you can find that at amazingoutlookcoaching.com. And, you know, if anybody is struggling with unhealthy habits, behaviors, or addictions, I would love to give you some tools and strategies so that you can feel a whole lot better.
Absolutely.
So, all right, my dear.
Thanks.
You take good care.
You too.
Rest, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.